right, welcome to the Omnia Soul Art Show. Today we are joined by Daniel Fromberg from Dear Daniel. And how you doing? How you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm just coming off of preparing for a couple shows this weekend, and I thought I had no ideas that I was actually interested in exploring, and then I was just kind of like pulling out random stuff to make sounds with and seeing if that would give me any ideas, and I came up with bringing a radio into the mix, which is great, because if you don't know what kind of sounds you want to make, you can just use sounds off of the radio. So I was having a lot of fun, doing like live looping from the radio.
So you're taking in like actual, just like, that's also like radio signal, and then just, are you like scanning through the different channels and then like looping?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I have it all synced up with all the other instruments, so it can be in time, but it could also go out of time. And I can just take like a 1 bar loop or like a 1 quarter note loop from the radio.
That's such a good idea. My very first vaporwave album, Sunshine Tapes Volume 1, which is very much like my just like exploring vaporwave in general, like taking random cassettes that I found. It's like very poor sound quality, but it doesn't necessarily matter since vaporwave, because I like really didn't know what I was doing. But my first trying to figure out how to transfer cassette to the computer to edit it, I was going through all these different Walkmans and stuff before I finally, now I've got this nice cassette deck, which makes everything easier. But one of my first ones I tried was like a VHS, or not VHS, a cassette and radio thing. And like the intro to that album, I did just like scanning through the radio, picking up different things, and then going down and slowing it.
Yeah, but I'm using the radio off of a Walkman, so the antenna on that is kind of garbage.
Yeah, but that's great, because then you get more like static that you can add like reverb, echo effects, and different things too. Yeah,
and it's kind of having like just like a low noise in the background is nice. It's like a vinyl filter, but in like a less aesthetically atrocious way.
So you've got the new album out, and then you've also got the project with Juno that just came out recently too. So do you want to talk about those two?
Yeah, I have an album out called Unfortunate Sound Experience, that are all at this point fairly old tracks that are almost entirely improvised live takes, mostly sampling pop songs and turning them into either like different pop songs or more like noise soundscapes. For example, one song is based around Britney Spears' Bombastic Love. Another song is just based off of an 808 bongo sound, and just pushing that like 1 second sample and seeing how far I can extend it. That's the last song on the album. What else? Also some like Drake and Frank Ocean in there, and that project was kind of about making a like statement work about like sampling.
Okay.
The project with Juno is just kind of like 1 day live jams, and then that was just like three recordings back to back over the space of like 2 hours, just with that was all with just whatever hardware we had around.
The Unfortunate Sound Experiments, especially you talking about it being kind of a commentary on sampling, I find it really interesting too, like the choices of samples being these like, you know, mega pop stars, and then completely distorting it and changing it into something new, but also the cover being kind of looking like the scariest Funko Pop I've ever seen, and just this kind of almost this, I don't know if it's intentional, but like this commentary on very generic pop music, where it does become sort of like the Funko Pops of of music, where it's way more about sometimes pushing out more content than actual like art. The same way like Funko Pops, people grab and collect it. It's this like blank template that's put with whatever IP you want on it, and so it's like interesting to me to think about kind of music that way in terms of like with now the whole news with the like AI. And so they put it. There was this like AI Drake and Weeknd song that just got like put out that was immediately taken down, and Universal Records was basically like, you either like stand with artists or you stand with these people who are trying to like mooch off us. And it's just like so rich coming from Universal, like one of the most notoriously exploitative record labels in the history of music.
That brings up a lot for me, so I'll just start with like the first thing, which is like choice of what sounds you're going to use when you're making music. Is that like, when you're making music, the first question and the most annoying one is like, what do I even like want to like do? Like I know I want to make music, but like what sounds should I use, what instruments am I going to use, like, and then if you work with samples, it's like, well, I have like a mechanism to sample stuff, like what sounds do I even want to use, like going back to the radio thing of saying like, oh, that just like chooses itself. But I think just to have some like humor and some universality to it, I like to use things that are fairly familiar, and just because I think that works inside of people's brains, across lots of different experiences. I think it also, if it's manipulated enough, it will just feel vaguely familiar rather than immediately evoking the sample. I think there's some of both. There's some of like, I recognize this, and some of like, I don't quite recognize this, but it sounds familiar to me.
That nostalgia almost creates like a deja vu effect a little bit when you hear a sample out of context and you can't place it, and it happens to me a lot with listening to the radio or different like at work when people put on old music, and I recognize the original song that was then sampled in something else, and I can't piece where I've heard that just like little bit before.
Also like the first song on my album samples Thinking About You by Frank Ocean, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm fairly certain that the string sound that he uses is not something that was uniquely recorded for that record. I'm fairly sure that is like from a sample pack or a synthesizer somewhere. Yeah. And rather than taking it from that, I'm just taking it from the song, and so it's kind of all means to the same end.
What's really funny to me about that song too is that it's now well regarded as a Frank Ocean song, but he wrote it for another artist, and it's like we don't even think of the other artist because like it's his version that blew up, but his version was originally just kind of like a I forget what the name in the industry, but like a sample track of just like, I'm presenting you this song that you can make your own version of it. And then he just like, well, I want to release my version too. And of course his version's the one that blew up. He's the one who wrote it. It came from like his heart,
Yeah, that was an incredibly smart choice he made to completely void whatever contract that was for. But very, very smart choice in the end. Which he has a history of making smart business choices, but I guess everyone's angry at him now for
the Coachella thing,
having a artistic temperament moment.
I think the Coachella thing's funny to me because like people are mad that he wasn't streaming it, but we're living in an age where it's like music festivals didn't used to be streamed, and like you paid for the concert ticket and this was it. So it's just like, it's very funny that like fans in general are just so hungry for anything that it's like, this is the big comeback, and like the rest of the festival's being streamed, and he chooses last minute like, no, I'm not going to stream it. But then of course it's like they had contracts with YouTube, but of course everyone's getting out their phone and going to like TikTok or Facebook and streaming it there. So it's like really funny to just like sow division with like, I'm not streaming it on the official stream to YouTube, but like random fans can stream it on your competitor's platform. Honestly, what I saw of the set in general like didn't seem too bad. Like I feel like the majority of complaints I've seen about that set have been from people who weren't actually there, who were just like upset that they couldn't see the stream, or what they saw of the stream upset them. But yeah, I definitely are. I don't know. I feel like
I don't think I support the decision of like last minute changing your plan.
Yeah, especially the ice rink thing.
Yeah, I think if you're that far in the game, you just gotta do it.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. And showing up an hour late when you know you have to be out by a certain time because of city ordinances.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but like the show must go on.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, totally.
And it's not even like something broke. It's like everything is working perfectly. It's just like, I don't know. No one. If he's like sitting there thinking like, man, this ice rink idea was stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, he should be like, you know, far enough in his career where like, just having like self-doubt like that doesn't like completely like sabotage you.
It's funny too.
Like the ice rink is there and set up. You're really
gonna
say never mind. Actually, I want to have no concept behind this.
Yeah.
That's really what I want.
Yeah, I just want to like vibe out to my own. Like a lot of it seemed more like a listening party. I am interested if anyone leaks the like house remixes of his songs, because apparently he actually sang like a handful of songs. Then he mostly just like vibed out to his own music.
Yeah, I heard it was like a DJ set.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
then
really know.
Then he did like a DJ set of some like remixes of his songs, which I'd be interested to hear those. But yeah, I don't know. It's like pop stars on that level, just like I don't know. It's very, very like diva move. But if we're also talking about artists who like, when did Blonde came out in like 2016?
Yeah.
So so like 3 more years and it'll be 10 years without an album. It's like 7 years without an album now. So it's like we get whatever we get with him. I feel like he's almost like retired in general, and he was like doing this because he's like contractually obligated, because he was supposed to do it like 2 years ago.
I guess it was supposed to be 2 years ago.
It was
some singles because.
It was either 2020 or 2021, and then it got canceled because of COVID, and then he pushed it back again, so it was 2023, and then so they had last year Ye, who dropped out last minute, and then Weeknd filled in, but they wanted to pay Weeknd like not the same rate, and he got mad about that, and then I think they got it worked out.
Yeah,
but
my understanding is artists who are playing festivals, like headlining slots, are doing it because they have an album out, and then if they don't have an album out, it's because the album got delayed for some reason. And then they have to play their like old music. For an hour, which is always just kind of weird when that happens. But I don't know. I think Frank Ocean's kind of in the same camp as like D'Angelo or Sade, where it's just like I'm doing my thing, and if I have an album, then I'll have an album.
And it's one of those things too. Yeah, when he does release, like it's not like it's gonna be mid.
Yeah, I mean on my own time scale, I take forever to release music. Like my album, like most of the songs were a year old by the time I actually put it out.
some quite interesting rhythms out of things if you just select just a little bit, and it always loops perfectly as well. So
I didn't used to be that way with music. I used to just like, as soon as it's done, get it out. And I am somewhat the same way with like music videos, because sometimes I think visually and I'm working on the video at the same time, especially if I'm pulling the source audio material from the video and making them together. Then it's like, yeah, put it out as soon as possible. But with this new album I have coming out, everything is basically done, but it's getting pushed back because it's like, I want to do more with it in the sense of not changing the music, but I really want to do a visual album like I've done in the past, but I want to do a cassette release, which is why I got this like stack of blank cassettes. And then I want to do like a very limited run VHS release. But like, in order to do that, I need to like either get the funds or crowdfund to like get the blank tapes and get everything printed and ready, because I want like a, you know, a finished product ready to go before I go forward with it. So like right now it's like the music only exists in a handful of singles I put out, and then just like occasionally if I'll live stream, I'll play some here and there.
Yeah,
but
I had the foresight to like almost have physicals done by the time this album came out. I had it mastered, then I was like, okay, I can get some tapes made in like 2 weeks. And then the tapes were done like a few days after it came out officially, but it wasn't too far off. But yeah, that is like almost all the time is better to just release something right away than hold on to it and be like, well, I'm gonna like maybe change this part. It's just like most of the time I don't end up actually changing any part. It's just sitting there unchanged.
Or you end up like doubting yourself to listen to. I feel like it's like sometimes good creatively just to make it, put it out there, and then maybe not even like listen to it because you've listened to it so much in the making process, but like wait a while. Like I've put out some releases where it's like I'll come back to it a year or two later and listen to it, and it's like, well, sometimes it'll be like, well, I didn't really like this part, but like I can hear how my music has changed in advance. But then it's also sometimes you'll like listen to it as like, oh, this was actually really good. Like I'm actually like proud of this, and I'm proud that I like put it out. Or if I second guess myself too much and I don't put it out there, it will just either like sit on a hard drive, or I'll need space and it'll eventually get deleted.
Yeah,
you know?
to contradict what I said, I've for a long time been a big fan of Jay Electronica.
Yeah.
Who, his whole thing was like, there's like a mythology, like a spiritual mythological aspect to waiting for the album drop.
Yeah.
Which was really funny to me because he had this album like theoretically done in like 2010.
Yeah.
That was the idea. Like, here's a screenshot of my finished album, and you just have to wait to hear it. And it was just like, I mean, he was just like hanging out, like literally just like, my album's done, I'm not releasing it because I have reasons.
Yeah.
And these reasons are kind of like spiritually tinted, of like the universe isn't ready for the album will come at the right universal time, which is really, really funny to me, because I think Frank Ocean does that probably
like Blonde was probably done for a long time.
Yeah, in like a less kind of like spiritually tinted way. He's kind of tapping into the same idea of like the magic of waiting.
Yeah.
And to the Jay Electronica thing, I think the idea behind that is that the album is like a time capsule, and it proves the album's worth when, you know, it does come out 10 plus years later, that it still sounds fresh, which it does.
Yeah.
It's good. His music that finally did come out is really good.
It's funny because I remember playing Exhibit C on repeat for like ever, and then just kind of forgot about him until everyone was like talking about his new album on Twitter, and I was like, wait, I forgot he like existed, honestly. But then the album that came out, that's the one where it's got like the multiple Jay-Z features, right? Or did he put out a different project?
2, there's the one where Jay-Z's on every song. And
Okay,
then there is
that's the one I've heard. I need
the
to listen to
actual
that one.
Act 2 is I definitely recommend listening
Need
to
to
it.
listen to
That's
that
the
one.
one that was being teased for over 10 years and
Okay.
then got leaked. And he decided to put it out as a title exclusive, which also is funny, is that in the end the magical incantation that ended up freeing the album was someone stealing it and putting it out. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, whatever, I guess it's time.
Yeah.
The time has come, y'all. It's time now. You're ready for Act 2. And right after someone leaks it.
I know people who like will not listen to leaks because they think, you know, it takes away from the artistry, or like you'll get like really into how a song sounds or how an album sounds, and then you don't like the changes. But I really enjoy leaks. One, because it's like there's some artists who's just not going to put stuff out, or stuff's not going to get cleared sample wise. But then it's also, I like hearing the process sometimes of like early leaks, and like maybe when lyrics are like not done yet, and then they go in and change it, and kind of see that artistic process of like how artists actually build a song.
Yeah, I mean, it does take away from it in the aspect we're talking about of like the mythos behind like an album release.
Yeah.
But like everything about how you listen or experience art kind of takes away from the art. Like if you're looking at a painting that was made by like candlelight in a gallery at nighttime over like fluorescent lights, that takes away from the art. Like if you're listening on like bad headphones, so the music, that takes away from like anything could be seen to take away from it. But
speaking of,
it's kind of like cancer. It's like anything could cause cancer.
Yeah.
You know, it's not worth dwelling on what's gonna cause cancer.
Speaking of the pop music in general, but also like bad speakers. So when Travis Scott's "Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight" came out in like 2017, I listened to that album a ton, and then I've recently revisited it, and I was like, for the longest time, I talked to my friend about this. For the longest time, we thought we were just listening to it on bad speakers. But now we're like listening to on better speakers, and it's like, no, this album is, I don't want to say bad, but it's like lo-fi in a really weird way.
It is lo-fi.
Yeah, it's like very, very like staticky and like blown out sounding, which is just funny in the sense of like, I don't know, it's like you have this idea in your head of like this super major artist who like only uses auto-tune, so you expect everything to sound like kind of crisp and clean, but everything is like the bass feels blown out a bit. I don't know. It's
Travis
interesting.
Scott has very specific ways he likes his music to sound and have it mixed, and Mike Dean is the only producer who's like crazy enough to actually like listen to him on it.
Yeah.
Which is why they're a great pairing. And like if you listen to Travis Scott music, the vocals are like incredibly loud, like much louder than any other artist, all the way up front in the mix.
Yeah.
And I mean, the mixing on that is insane. Like Rodeo sounds a little more normal. Astro World too, but like Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight is like a bonkers sounding mix and master of an album. I do really like it. I really like that kind of era of like hip hop.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Especially it was like the late end of the mixtape era too, and it was so with every album coming out, the mixtape would come out like, you know, a little bit before the album, and the mixtape was, you know, always even more lo-fi, but also had like just fucking hits, just so many good songs that did not make the album that like end up being like my favorite songs. Like the same with like Young Thug and like all those like rappers of that you know mid was it 2010s?
Yeah,
it was 2010s.
Young Thug had like 100+ songs leak. It kind of it was thought to have ruined his career, and then he still ended up having like a resurgence. It's funny because he was like 23 years like it's insanely young, and people are like, oh, Young Thug's washed up. Yeah, that was like before Havana, and now I guess his career's over again because he's like in jail or something. I don't know, but that period of time, like 2015 to like 2019, is like when I actually was like interested in like what music was popular now and was like closely following it when like those like Travis Scott albums were coming out and Kanye West albums and
Yeah.
Drake albums even.
Yeah.
That's when I was like had an interest in like following music charts and like reading about music that was actually coming out, which I don't do anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's
was interesting too.
The samples that I use are like definitely based in that time period.
Yeah.
Like I have like a knowledge of pop music now. I have no idea about pop music now, except that I do listen to the radio a lot. But I will still be like, oh, I have no idea who that is when someone's talking about like a new artist I should know.
Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of like a Travis Scott in 2016. I'll just be like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
I'm definitely becoming an old person when I listen to the radio because I listen to the throwback station a lot, which is stuff that I was listening to in like junior high and high school. Like a lot of like Biggie and Tupac were definitely like before me, but I was like discovering them in high school. But then it'll be like a Fat Joe song, like Lean Back or something, or like Nelly, and it's like, okay, that was, you know, or like Jay-Z at that time. But especially 2015, 2016, it was so many pop artists kind of moving away, or well, I shouldn't even say pop, but like rap and like R&B artists who were, I don't know, it sounded so different. Like,
it was an interesting moment.
Yeah.
In terms of like the mechanics of music, that was like there's interesting stuff happening to the format of the album around then. That was and that was related to charts and like kind of gaming the charts.
Yeah.
With like people releasing really really long albums.
Yeah, with streaming. Yeah, and then because you would get paid a certain amount for every like finished song. So it's like, okay, well, I'm putting out. Every artist is putting out a double album.
Yeah, the more songs, the more streams.
Yeah.
And that I think probably results in like less polished music on the album.
And less thinking of like a cohesive piece. A lot of times I don't listen to deluxe albums because a lot of songs are they're throwaway. They're not good. Like some are fine, but it definitely takes away from the cohesiveness of an album, where the format of a vinyl record or even a cassette tape and then to a CD, you know, you only have a limited amount of time. So it's like you're very much thinking of like, what am I trying to get across in 12 songs, as opposed to like, that time of starting was like, how many songs can I put out? You did get some interesting stuff with even like, I'm a fan of most, if not all, of Rihanna's catalog, but Anti was so much different than the rest of her music and so much better, and I don't think she's going to come out with another album because I feel like it was like, this is my best album, this is my magnum opus, and I'm just going to like step away from music and work on my like beauty line or whatever. But it was just, I don't know, it was tinged in that production of the time. I don't know if she was actively dating Travis Scott, but I know he's like featured on one of the songs and did like some of the production on it.
Yeah, he was just literally just like in the studio saying like, make it louder, and like it's a production credit.
Yeah,
but there's something to be said for that.
And just the wooing on one of the songs.
Yeah, that song. I never really thought about that. Even like Rihanna is like so attached to that moment we're talking about of like 2015 to 2019 that she's like, I can't even come back from what I did then. That was just like such a like weirdly like peak creativity moment for like pop, hip hop, R&B music. That like even Rihanna's like, I don't know what to do after that. Frank Ocean's like, I don't know what to do after that.
Yeah, with Blonde too, there was speculation that it had been done for a really long time, because it was the whole thing of like, he wanted out of his deal with Def Jam, but he used the resources of Def Jam to record both Endless and Blonde. Released Endless as, you know, like the Apple Music video exclusive to get out of his contract, and then like it was like the day later, right, when Blonde came out.
Yes, and I remember this time very well, and I waited in line to grab the Boys Don't Cry magazine in Evanston, and the person who was working security there said that Frank Ocean like specifically like handpicked the magazine stand that was the pop-up. So
wow.
It's like, it had to have been done for like months to get the like all the accoutrements that come with the album get the... Well, I guess there weren't physicals right away, but there was the magazines.
Yeah.
So there was physicals that needed to be prepared. Yeah, I'm sure he was working on the magazine for like a year and the music was totally done. And there's also like been discussion of like there are 30 versions of X song and 50 versions of Y song that he's choosing between, which is like...
He does a good job in his songwriting too, of the references he makes. They're dated to a certain time, but they're dated in this nostalgia of growing up in the 90s, where it's like that becomes timeless to, you know, a certain generation, like my generation. But it's not like he's like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes you'll listen back to songs when they're like referencing Twitter, or like, yeah, like Twitter still exists obviously, but like referencing social media or like technology that's out at the time, that then it becomes like so dated because it changes. Granted, I could be wrong with this, but I'm just thinking of like Channel Orange starting with the like PS1 startup screen. Yeah. There's like another song that starts with like the sound, doesn't it start with like the sound of like inserting a tape, like a VHS tape, and then, or maybe that's the same. But then also like I'm thinking of like cultural references, and he references like Majin Buu, and it's like that's such like not a niche reference because obviously Dragon Ball Z is huge, but it's like that was like such like a 90s kid thing to reference, where it's like dated, but it's dated in this sense of nostalgia, as opposed to like dated because it's an outdated reference.
Yeah, that just is making me think. I think people have always acted like references to contemporary technology are going to be outdated one day, but literally there's been like, since MySpace, there's been no changeover in the social media. People like, if someone said Facebook in their song in 2009, it would literally still be relevant. Yeah. There's an Editrix song where they say like, I did it for the Instagram, and then there's a drop, and like, it's great because like Instagram is like, that won't be something that's fleeting and in that kind of sense of like, people are like, what even was that? That's like stuck around enough that it's like in the collective.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can think of is like, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird because it like, I guess I take back what I said too of like thinking of it dated, because now I'm thinking of like songs that reference beepers and stuff, and obviously that's dated, but it's like,
yeah, that might be one where someone is like, what?
Well, now there's a lot of people who like wouldn't know what that is. Yeah. Like I never had a beeper. Like I remember getting my first cell phone, but you know, flip phones are back.
Yeah, and there is like a continual recycling that is indicative of the era we live in, that like everything will be trudged up and relevant again. Yeah. Because it's kind of just like an era of like endless recombination rather than newness. Totally. So yeah, they're, in a way, nostalgia will always be fresh. Yeah, yeah. Unless it's had a resurgence too recently, and then it's outdated. Yeah.
Is there any like trends, either artistically, fashion-wise, technological, that you want to see like have like a resurgence?
I am very personally interested in like what is cheap right now that will be sought after later.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I was first getting interested in, well, I've been interested in cassettes and recording on cassettes and releasing cassettes pretty much since I started making music, because I was completely obsessed with Modest Mouse.
Yeah.
Whose early stuff is all like these like cassette tapes that Isaac Brock like gave to friends, and people have subsequently like Xeroxed and put online, as well as Neutral Milk Hotel and Elephant Six that were obsessed with 4-tracks.
Yeah.
So this is a way to preface with saying when I was like looking into getting tape stuff in like 2010, 11, 12, you could get a 32-minute blank tape for 17 cents.
Yeah.
And like a pack of 100 for $17. You could get like a 4-track recorder for $100 and like a tape deck for $4. So that was like, at that moment, that was the right technology for the moment.
Yeah.
In the same way, like a 303 acid-based synth is said to have been like such a staple of acid house because no one wanted it. Right?
Yeah, because they could afford it. They could get it at the pawn shops because no one wanted it because it didn't sound like a bass. But then acid house is now it's like so hard to get.
So I'm always interested in like what do people not want right now, and in the landscape of physical media, there really isn't anything that I can think of that's like, oh, this is what's cheap right now, except maybe well, CDs are probably the best bet, but I haven't been able to come up with a good answer of like what is like, I guess USB sticks, like people do USB sticks as merch, those are like dirt cheap.
Yeah.
That is like
that'll
a good
change,
viable merch format, but they're not that cool. It's like
there's not much you can do with them. Yeah. In terms of VHS too, like when I became a collector, it was because I was living in an apartment with no internet, but I had that TV right there before I had to break off the dust guard because I got a tape stuck in there and I could not get it out. And I end up still using the TV for art purposes. I just don't use that VCR on it. But it was like tapes are so cheap. Like there was a Salvation Army that I could get. It was like $5 for $1. But if you went up with 4 tapes, they would charge you $4. So you had to grab a 5th tape. Like they're clearly like trying to get rid of their inventory.
At the thrift store.
They which one?
At the Village Discount.
Oh, okay.
It's 3 for $1.
Okay, I gotta go.
Unless you get less than 3.
I gotta go to Village Discount because the Salvation Army near me now just like they charge based on it's mostly 98 cents per tape, but they charge also like based on what the tape is. Because I feel like there's enough people going through the stuff there. But
thrift stores know about resellers now. They're like, oh, we can charge like 90% of reseller price so that the resellers can make like the 10%. It's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. But it's funny too because it's like the tapes are so easy to come by, but VCRs were such a commodity because it's like if you could find one, it'd be tough to see if it like worked or not because it was such a gamble, especially buying them from thrift stores because it was probably donated because it was broken.
Yeah, I really wish I could say what the penny stock of like nostalgia products is right now, but I have no idea. What the future of physical media resurgences will be. But I have not stopped looking. Well, I kind of have stopped. Like, I would love to do like physical releases on like 8-track and floppy disks specifically.
Floppy disk would be amazing. Because you need like a specific adapter that's way harder to get.
I do have blank floppy disks and floppy disk USB drive.
That's
and
awesome.
I would like to do like a MIDI release on it one day because they're 1.5 megabyte floppies, so you can't really hold music even insanely big, even like insanely compressed music. You couldn't really fit very much. So I'd like to do like a MIDI release, but that's still on the workbench. I would love to get into mini discs, but that is like the most expensive. Of the nostalgia products. There's an insane barrier to entry with exploring mini discs, even though they're such a cool format. it's just like very, very expensive.
I wanted to figure out how to, because a lot with my vaporwave, it's pulling a lot of samples, like sometimes specific, but I sometimes prefer the kind of like limitation that comes with randomness. The same of concept of like using the radio in your live sets, of like me finding mixtapes that someone else has made, or even like I put out 2 albums like back to back, 89 Volvo and Cowboy Killers, which both were like these corporate cassettes. The Cowboy Killers was this like Marlboro country ballads, and then the 89 Volvo was like a Shell gas station cruising classics.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I cherish my like tapes that are just like preachers talking or like sales pitches.
Yeah,
like, there's
I've got a lot to I can actually give you too.
There's like hypnosis tapes. That's something that's fairly common as well.
Yeah, I've got one that's the mind sync that's supposed to like unite your left and right side of your brain so that you can fully function. Those are a lot of fun to sample, but the concept of especially homemade mixtapes, because it's something that someone went, a lot of times it's just recording off the radio, but occasionally it's people who like went out of their way to either make for themselves or for someone else of like their favorite songs. And I love that kind of limitation of sampling from that, because you don't necessarily know what's on it, and I have to Shazam most of the songs to figure out what the source material is. But I want to eventually get to the point of now, especially since I'm soon going to be branching out into learning how to solder and learning how to like circuit bend myself, where I've been before that kind of similar to someone who is just getting into like electronic music or DJing. It's like taking this pre-made equipment and, you know, twisting knobs to see what's happened. That's how I've kind of treated video art, and I want to branch into, you know, the tradition of also being able to build stuff. But I want to look into CD players, because CD Walkmans is one thing. They're kind of expensive. They're like $25 brand new, but they still make them and you can still get them. And then using that and like either, I've seen some artists like either like scratch up CDs or put like just like a piece of tape on a CD, like purposefully like skip it as a way, because
there's a decent amount you can do with CDs. Let me just, all the trade secrets. So you can short out the pin that turns the sound off when the CD's paused, and then it will hold the quote-unquote groove of the peaks and valleys that the laser is reading, because when it's paused it's still spinning, and it's still making that noise. It's just shutting it off so that it doesn't sound weird.
That's
so
awesome.
If you short out that pin, you can do that. Fun with I've done did a CD player performance where I just had 2 CD players going with tracks of audio that were like 6 seconds, like loops, and then on one CD it would just be like slightly longer, so it'd do like phase stuff with 2 CD players. There's a range of Tascam CD players for singers and CD players for guitarists that have loop features and pitch features.
That's
and
awesome.
Transposing features. Those are really cool. They also have MP3 players like that. Those are cool. You can also like old CDJs from like Gemini and Pioneer have like looping and pitch and effects.
That's awesome.
Player, yeah.
There's one CD that I had in like, I mainly remember listening to it in like 2015, but it was a mix CD I made that had I don't know if the whole CD was Dead Prez, but it had Dead Prez, It's Bigger Than Hip Hop on it. And I remember specifically it was so scratched up that in my car it would skip, but it would get stuck on just the 808 at the beginning, and it would just be like boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
And it was like the first kind of, I feel like at that point I had made glitch art in like still images, but it was kind of my first accidental introduction to glitch music, and I always wanted to figure out a way to sample that and make like a 20-minute song of that. And the only thing I can kind of compare it to is someone like work that I've heard that's comparable to that just accidental CD is like the kind of music that Care makes, or like Care DJs, of just like that hardcore techno of it's just like that one repeating 808 drum, just like over and over, just like, I don't know. I love music that you can feel. And that was so cool about being at that, the James Connolly show that we were both at, whereas like, was it 70 hertz? 60 hertz. Yeah, so making music in 60 hertz, which is the same frequency as old electronics and like CRT TVs, and it's like you can hear it, but it like pulsates through your whole body, and that, I don't know, I love bass. I love bass so much.
This was for sure recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been recorded. Yeah, we're at like.
I was like, I can't see the waveform.
We are, yeah. So you can see it going up and down there, and you can see this little moving. I just like.
It just doesn't populate until it's gone. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, that brings up a lot. Actually, the first track on my album, where I'm sampling the opening of "Thinking About You," was inspired by a moment where I would play the CD player in the car and like manually skip back and forth and sample it. So that's kind of like the personal memory that unlocks for me, and I was like responding to, and I did that. And I love the idea of playing a media player, and you're saying like you want to learn more about electronics.
Yeah.
I think it's important being an artist to have moments where you're like skimming the surface, you're working with things that have like a childlike wonder, like I don't really know what this is, but then also having aspects of your practice where you're like at the level of like first principles, like I truly understand this, or like I'm moving toward truly understanding this, whereas like this thing I'm like, I'm not even trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Or like I understand it, but like not the base level. I understand the like top level of it only. Like I understand the stuff on here, but I don't understand the stuff under here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to learn, the under here. But even the while you're talking about the understanding these sort of things, since a lot of my stuff is like self-taught and experimenting, I don't understand the terminology a lot of the times. Like there are, at least the history of sound too, but the history of video art is so, it's been around for so long that there are words of like, this form of color is called this effect, and it's like, those are things that I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's funny too, because it's like you get practice, and I'm sure your kind of setups are the same way, whether you're using Macs or different hardware, different software, where you get everything where you need it to be, where if anyone else comes in, it could just like all fall apart. I've had that happen in live setups where I'm using like a circuit bent video processing device going into the wave pool, going into OBS, and then projecting out. But then someone comes over like drunkenly at a show and is like, "Oh man, can I test it out? Can I?" And then it's like, "Yeah, sure." But then it's like they turn one or two knobs and the video just goes away.
Yeah, I'm just like, no, you
like,
can't do it that way. You have to do this weird workaround.
Yeah, because it's like everything I have is like, I know the effects that I want to get out of this, but everything is so finicky and volatile that I could just lose the image.
The Unfortunate Sound Experience albums, like all the like motifs on that are like weird hacks in the patch I made. Like to get like, most of the time the loops that are created are like, I'm changing the speed of an audio clip with a square wave that's alternating between 1.0 original speed and -1 like reverse speed, and like the loop is
that's
just like
so cool.
The weird, just like doing weird stuff. Like most people do like a sample and hold. I'm doing it like with this like weird workaround of like using like an oscillator to like make loops. And like if I want to do like weird stuttery loops, I just have to make like a really fast oscillation, like stuff like that. Like in my program, like so many of the motifs on that album were like, oh, I just like discovered this weird thing, just like moving around the pedals, so to speak. I like to use guitar pedals as an analogy for like programming, building any kind of thing, because like a lot of musicians understand that, and there's like guitar pedals are kind of like just these like building blocks,
Totally.
like a Lego type of way. They're like, I can make this thing, and like I can think about like signal chain order with these things, like,
and you get the very interesting things. But figuring out how to the order of plugging it together, the combination of different things to create something where it's not just reverb, it's not just an echo or distortion, but how do you make your unique voice by combining it?
Yeah, like, if I put distortion before the delay, then I can change the distortion and it lives on in the delay, and then it's like this weird filter thing that goes on, stuff like that. But then, I've had this experience of like doing like websites or making little max patches for people, being like having to inform them of like the workarounds, or like, you try to do something that's very obvious why you would try to do that because that makes sense, but actually you have to do it in a way that doesn't make sense.
Totally. So I
Sounds so great.
want to... What did I want to talk about? Oh, I want to talk about... We've talked a lot about like physical equipment. I'm going to have to cut that peeking out of me opening the can.
Emitter on there.
Liquid Death, please sponsor me. Please, I drink your water. I was just thinking of that Trump tweet of that. Do you remember the I forget what happened that made him mad at Coke, but he's like, I'll keep drinking your garbage even though I hate you.
That's relatable moment.
Okay, so yeah, I want to talk about, we've talked a lot about like physical hardware, but I want to talk about Max because it is a very interesting software that I have never used, but I'm very curious to use, and I feel like I don't want to say a lot because I don't have a lot of viewers, but I feel like some viewers and listeners may be accustomed to Max and maybe not. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about it? Because it seems so intense and so in depth with just like how versatile it is in terms of programming, video, sound, anything you want to do creatively.
Yes, Max is kind of like the industry standard of computer music. It's kind of like the Photoshop of making computer music, or like it's like the Ableton of like programming in a way. It's like ancient. It was made in 1991. It first came out, and what it is a visual programming language, quote unquote. So you, rather than fussing over code to create a music program, you can use modules that operate on the synthesizer metaphor, where it's like you're using these modules that have patch connections as building blocks to make software, and those software patches can be instruments, they can be compositions themselves. In this like visual programming page, you can basically do whatever you want. You can kind of make anything in there. I even do graphic design on Max, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a really I am by far more comfortable in Max than I am in like
in Photoshop or Illustrator.
Than I am in like InDesign.
Oh, okay,
I'll be like, I just want to like make this chart in Max. Real quick. So that's kind of the deal with it. Like, the answer is always yes. There is a way to do it in Max, and there's a few reasons I think why I'm really drawn to it. If I think about the history of the ways I've tried to make music and the ways I felt like I wanted to make music, doing them, I did have like a guitar pedal moment where I was really into doing guitar pedals. I also, I grew up with a copy of Pro Tools because my brother had Pro Tools, and I was really into kind of performing with Pro Tools plugins. And I thought, like, I just want to, like, play Pro Tools as an instrument. And that was before I knew Max was a thing. So I liked the idea of, like, playing with the interface itself as an instrument. And I think working in Max is kind of akin to that idea of, like, Max, you can do the playing with the CD player as your instrument, but you can do it in a more like intentional way. You can like develop the features of that. I don't know if that made sense, but
it does.
But basically that the idea behind it is you can quickly sketch out ideas, you can make set projects with clean interfaces, or you can compose something, or you can make something really quick, or you can spend years building something in Max. That's kind of the idea behind it.
It's interesting too because it feels like it's so versatile, and every time I meet an artist who uses Max, they're using Max in a different way than another artist is. But there's also so much kind of like copying and pasting of different tech of like someone else developed this this sampler or this way of like making like a drum pad or like a rhythm with it that I'm going to use and combine with my own. And
it's just like coding in that way where like 90% of coding is Googling and stealing other people's code and then integrating it into yours.
That was definitely I don't use HTML hardly at all, but that was my kind of introduction to HTML, was being like in the MySpace era of like finding a layout that you really like, or even like the early days of Tumblr of like finding a layout you really liked, finding a feature you really liked, and then finding the code that someone else made and copying and pasting it.
Yes, I do mostly make my own stuff in Max because I'm usually very particular, and even if the thing I made myself is like incredibly basic and so much more basic than the synth I could find or the sequencer I could find or the delay I could find, I like my basic little thing because it's like just works. It like gels with my brain.
Yeah.
You know?
The first time I ever saw someone using Max 2 was like a sound artist where it's just like just screenshots of the actual code and the actual like connecting of different things together. And to someone who doesn't know what's going on, like to me it looked like very, very interesting, but also gibberish at the same time.
That's the thing too. You can show someone a match packs and be like, "Look how crazy it is."
Yeah,
and it's actually just like
it's all these boxes combined.
It's
by
actually
lines.
Just incredibly disorganized and it's like simple. It's kind of like you can kind of do like, "Wow, look how cool this is," and it's like just completely obfuscated. It's like the simplest thing ever. Or you can have something really complicated that's laid out really nicely, and you're like, "Look how cool!" Like,
and you can use it like saying how you're using it as an instrument. You can use it to code like actual sound of right, like
you can do anything. You can do
so you can just like synthesize like 808s on there, right?
Yes,
that's amazing.
You can do synthesis. You can do sampling.
And
you can do whatever.
Yeah, I need to learn it because that changed the game. Because everything I've done so far has either been sampling or it's been like electronic kind of tracker music where I'm bringing in either the pre-made sets that are on it or bringing in someone else's drum pad that they've made into the program, and that's how I've been getting like the drums or the 808s or the different sounds, and then adding different like pedal effects to them.
If you are someone who is like wanting to like buy and mess with hardware, Max is a great budget option.
Yeah.
Because if you can look at the hardware and say, well, what does it do that I want to do? You can start thinking about, well, how can I kind of like emulate that behavior in Max?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then also not even do it how they did, do it how I want to do it.
Yeah.
So it is it's great if you want that like initial investment in it to end up saving you money long term, because I'm like I never have like a ton of like extra cash to shell out for gear. I feel like I'm the last electronic musician who doesn't have like an Electron in their setup.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, I would love to have like a Digitact, but I don't know when that's feasibly gonna happen.
Getting gear is so hard to get, and like it's funny because we're living in an age where making music and digital art is at its most accessible, but also it's like most distant of like if you want any like hardware, like you have to have the budget for it, and who has the you have to get lucky. You have to be on the Facebook Marketplace and be looking, like even we were talking about this video piece that I just got. This retails, I feel like now a lot of the listings are anywhere from like 50 to 120. I got really lucky where it was like going for like $29.99 plus like $20 shipping or something, and I just favorited it on eBay, and I was like, I'm gonna come back to it when I want money. And because I favored it, because no one was buying it, the seller like made me an offer of like $5 cheaper. And so I was like, okay, to like total $50 of $25, and then like $25 shipping. Sure, like I'll get that. As opposed to like paying $120 plus $50 shipping.
No, there's still deals out there. Especially
there's deals of like people just trying. Yeah, deals of people trying to get rid of shit where it's like I'm doing them a favor and they're doing me a favor of like I want this equipment and they just want to get rid of this equipment.
I found a DR202, which is like a groove box that's great for drum and bass, and
that's
the boss
awesome.
made those up on Facebook for $50, and that's like one thing I really want, but I didn't think I could spare $50. So I just sent it to Kara because I knew Kara also wanted one. So it's just like I want someone cool to walk home with this thing. So please buy it, or else I'm gonna like send it to someone else.
Well, that's also a way to like collaborate with people. Well, I haven't even checked if that piece of video gear that you sent me is gone or not. But that's a way to like collaborate with people too. Of like the first video equipment that I like bought, it's like I split the price with my friend, and I ended up using it like way more than he does. He'll borrow it from time to time. But yeah, it's a very easy, like that makes it more accessible of like find a friend you want to collaborate with and then like split the price with them, and you can like, you know, share this gear. It forces you to collaborate too, because then it's like I want to use it, then, you know, back and forth, and then if one of you gets way more into it, you know, play a couple shows, get some money, and then buy it like full price from them. So
but yeah, also like honestly, Max isn't like always the solution. Like a lot of the time, if you're just trying to like make electronic music, like really cheaply, like VC VRAC is probably like the better option for most people. If you're into like the modular, since the VC VRAC is like
VC VRAC, I'm gonna
even lower barrier to entry. It's like straight up free. There's paid features, but it's straight up free, and they have a bunch of like little modules you can mess with.
So does it use? It's software based that's like emulating a Eurorack?
Yeah, it's like a Eurorack emulator. It's
awesome.
It's really good. I have not really messed around with it too much because it's kind of not my horse at the show or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like full in on Max, but I'm so full in on Max that I use it as a recording interface. I did live sound for a show off of it with like EQs that I had made.
That's awesome. I didn't even know. You can record on it too.
Yeah, I like literally you can use it as a recording interface as anything. I mean,
and you can use it as a DAW too.
Yeah, I use it as a DAW basically. I mean, I've heard before that Ableton was made in Max and then it became its own thing. I don't know if that's true, but
I could see it.
The idea is you could make Ableton in Max.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
If you were willing to make that time investment, you could do that. But yeah, I mean, there's some stuff you have to like break out the JavaScript for, but you can like do JavaScript in Max and all that stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation, and I feel like this is gonna be a really fun show. And yeah, I'm really glad not only to get you on the show, but to get you on the return of the show, because I took like such a long hiatus to get a job, get into grad school, get my life together and my rent paid. But now we're back, and so thank you for being on the show. Is there anything? Plug your Bandcamp websites, everything like that, but also plug what upcoming shows you have, because I know you got some live shows coming up.
Yes. I'm here. The stated purpose of this was to promote the album, which is Unfortunate Sound Experience, that is on streaming under the Dear Daniel artist moniker, and there's some tapes you can buy online, or you can message me directly at dear-daniel.bandcamp.com. I have an EP out too with Juno Ibarra that's on streaming. That's the recorded music landscape. I'm trying to get more recordings out sooner rather than later. I have some Lucy's up on Bandcamp that are newer than the album, some ambient stuff, and then I have shows this weekend. I don't know when you're uploading this, but Bloomington, Indiana on Friday and Indianapolis, Indiana on Sunday. My Instagram is at Daniel Fromberg, where you can get details on that, unless I end up changing it to like Dear Daniel or something, which it's possible.
I've had I've had guests on the show before who like changed not just their handle, but changed literally like the Bandcamp link.
Yeah.
Like, and it was right after I uploaded the video. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
for part 2, I'm gonna go back and
I recently changed my Bandcamp link and SoundCloud link, so I'm still
Dear
trying
Daniel.
to remember. Yeah, they're Dear
Yeah.
Daniel. Well, that's taken everywhere, so it's like hyphen some places, underscore some places.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mess, but whatever. I'm just better late than never.
Totally.
I guess. I'm gonna
Totally.
do that as the name.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
take care, everyone.